Hello, this is Faith at Faith and Books. How are you doing? I am sitting in the study because we finally got the grandfather clock fixed, and now the chime is a little too loud, so I'd have to plan videos in between the chiming. So anyway, I switched to in here, and I don't know about the lighting, but I did the best I could. Anyway, I am going to do a tag. It's Tag Tuesday. I have not really participated in tags in a long while, but I was tagged by Talia at Talia Nerds Out before. What was the name of that tag? I can't even remember what it was. But this one, she also tagged me for this one. It is the Phenomenal Woman tag, and I did see this going around, so I think a number of people have already done it. But I thought I would do it. So I'm a couple weeks late. So sorry, Talia, but here I am doing it. So the first question is, who is your favorite phenomenal woman author? And of course, there's so many that I could say. And Talia, I think, picked Jane Austen and Agatha Christie, which could have been mine too. So I started thinking about them. I thought about Dorothy L. Sayers, because I've really read a lot of her stuff, I don't know, in the last, 10, 15 years. I read her translation of the Divine, what do I want to say, the Divine Comedy. And so this is the only thing physical I have, though, that I can find of hers. I used to have a copy of The Nine Tailors, which is one of the Lord Peter Wimsey's mysteries, but I think I lent it to somebody. And that was the only one. I tended to get them all out of the library or read them as an ebook. So, and that was a while ago, so I didn't bother to look for them. But I read all of her Lord Peter Wimsey's, well, mostly all of them. I got up to Busman's Honeymoon. And there might be a few stray ones, or maybe one at the very end that I didn't read. But also because of Christy Lewis's Advent, was it Advent and also Lent? We've been reading her radio plays. So after she rose to fame because of Lord Peter Wimsey, and then she became more religious and she started writing radio plays, religious radio plays. And then she also translated Dante. So anyway, she was a phenomenal person. I first heard of her, well, I guess I heard of her a long time ago when PBS had those Lord Peter Wimsey series, I don't know, back in the 70s or 80s. But then when I was homeschooling, her essay, and now the name of the essay is going to escape me, but that actually, it was about classical education, some speech that she gave, and then it was written out as an essay. And it inspired so many homeschoolers. Much of the homeschooling movement based itself on that interpretation of classical education. So she's really had a lot of impact. She's fairly well known, though. She's not that obscure. So I thought I would pick, for real, my real phenomenal woman author, somebody that I think doesn't get the recognition she deserves. So she has been called the American Agatha Christie. She started writing about 20 years before Agatha Christie, and of course she was American, and she mostly sets her novels in the Northeast, the upper Northeast? No, is that right? Just the Northeast, like New York, Pennsylvania, that area. And she was prolific. She wrote many mysteries, and she also wrote funny books too. Her book, Bab, a Subdeb, is hysterical. And I haven't read all of her things. She has some other series that I haven't even touched on. You can really only get her in used books as ebooks, or you can occasionally find some like print on demand type things. But she was a really good author. In fact, I started reading this one, The After House, by her, because I was reading the book, The Secret Life of Sunflowers, for Framed in September, about Johanna van Gogh, who inherited Vincent van Gogh's paintings. And, it's a good enough book, but the writing, it's so rom-com level writing. It irritates me. I don't like a lot of modern writers because they write like that, and it just bugs me. It's just these flighty, but somehow they're liberated, but then they're also really flighty and they do goofy things, and that's supposed to be the comic relief. And I do not care for it. So it was irritating me, even though I think at some points the author writes well, and the premise is good and all that. It just was irritating me. So I said I want to read somebody more old fashioned. So I knew I had downloaded this on my Kindle, and this is The After House by Mary Roberts Reinhardt. She's really good. I highly recommend Mary Roberts Reinhardt, especially if you're an Agatha Christie fan. You will really, really I mean, she's spooky. They're scary, and they're good mysteries. She's the one that coined the phrase, the butler did it. And I think it's said that sort of kind of, in an indirect way, she's responsible for the idea of Batman, because she also wrote a lot of plays, or maybe her plays were novelized, or maybe her novels were turned into plays, but she wrote one called The Bat. And she's just a really good writer that does not get the recognition. They should put out a whole series of her books, like in a nice edition. What's wrong with these publishers? I don't know. If I was in the publishing industry, I would do that. I would go and get her books and put them out as a collection. So Mary Roberts Reinhardt, I highly recommend her, and she's pretty obscure. So it's kind of hard to get a hold of her books. I lost my list of, there we go. Okay, so that was the answer to question 1. What's your favorite phenomenal woman author? And I'm just going to arbitrarily say Mary Roberts Reinhardt. Okay, and then 2, what book features your favorite phenomenal woman character? This was the hardest one to answer, but I decided that it was George Eliot's Romola. I'm not sure how you say that. It's R-O-M... Is it O-L-A, Romola? I had not heard of this George Eliot book until about 4 years ago, when there was a group read, maybe it was 4 or 5 years ago, of it in January. And I read it, and it's very dark. It's not the easiest read in the world, but I actually found it really gripping. And I loved the character of Romola. So Romola was living in Florence during the time of what's-his-face in the Renaissance, when there was, I can't remember his name. I always have trouble remembering his name. Anyway, there's this religious figure that almost had like a cult following, kind of a reform figure. Can't remember his name. Anyway, it's set during that time, and it's about this young woman, innocent young woman, who sadly makes a very bad marriage. And it's what she does as she's disillusioned by her husband and realizes that he's not a good person, and how she copes with it in this very tumultuous time in the city of Florence. And it was an amazing, amazing book. And that character has haunted me ever since. I got to reread that book. But first I have to read The Mill and the Floss. That's the only major George Eliot work that I haven't read yet. So after I read Mill and the Floss, I'm going to go back and read Romola. But I think that might be, just because she really stayed with me. And it was a very complex portrait of a young woman trying to come to grips with all the tragedy in her life and all the disappointment. All right, and then the third question is, if you were creating a book prize, which book by a phenomenal woman author would you choose? All right, so this is another obscure woman author. Her name was Gertrude von Lefort. She hardly ever gets mentioned, but she wrote this. It's just a novella. She wrote this novella about the Carmelite nuns. There were 16 Carmelite nuns, I think it was 16, who were like the last to be killed in the Reign of Terror after the French Revolution. And yeah, they guillotined these nuns. And it's a story, it's a fictionalized account, of course, it's a novella, of the youngest one. I forget how old she was. I haven't read this in a few years, but she's very young, and it's the story of her life. So she's born during a riot, and as she grows up, she's always plagued by this fear that just wells up in her. She's just has this constant sense of dread. So she winds up becoming a cloistered Carmelite. They're cloistered nuns. And of course, she winds up going to the scaffold. So it's all about her. It's absolutely searingly beautiful. And it just doesn't it's pretty obscure. You have to go to like these tiny little Catholic publishers to get it. And she's not even acknowledged as the source of, you have to dig, as the source for the French composer Poulenc wrote an opera. He wrote both the music and the libretto called The Dialogue of the Carmelites. And it's based on this story. But what happened was there was another better known French author, and I'm not going to say his name right, George Bernanos, or that's not how you say George in French, but he wrote The Diary of a Country Priest. He's like a little bit better known in literary circles. He wrote a screenplay, which it never made it to the movies, I don't think, but it was adapted for the stage. So he gets cited, but he based it on this. He based it on her story. But he gets the credit and she never does. It's so frustrating. So anyway, I think she deserves a prize for writing this incredibly beautiful, moving story about this young woman. And it inspired both Bernanos, however you say his name, I don't know how to say it, who was, a greater literary figure than her, and then Poulenc to write an opera. So this book deserves a prize. So I think that is it. This tag only has 3 questions, and so many people have done it before, and Talia tagged all sorts of people, but I'm going to tag, and now suddenly I'm drawing a blank on the name of her channel, but I just started watching this really delightful channel, and it's, what did I do with my phone? I'll put it below. It's M something or another. Oh boy, I'm going to put it below, and I'm tagging you, M. I hope you know. I try to do it so that it will come up if you have your, settings. You'll know if other people have tagged you. There's a way of doing that. I didn't know how to do that at first when I first came on BookTube, or maybe it's a new feature. I don't know, but somehow it became possible to see whether people had tagged me or not, whereas before I did not know that. So anyway, I'm so sorry I can't remember your channel name, and I don't even know what I did with my phone to look it up. Maybe I could look it up here. Well, I'm not going to look it up right now. All right, so that's the end of the tag. I will put M's channel below, and I'm tagging her if she would like to do this. I don't know whether she's done it or not before. So, and if you are a woman booktuber and you like these questions, then go ahead and do it. And you haven't been tagged before, go ahead and do it. I'll put the questions below as well. All right, take care, and happy Tag Tuesday, and I will talk to you later. Bye.